Toby Shook, former chief felony prosecutor in Dallas County, is here to discuss day one of the American Sniper trial. Toby, thanks for being here first.
Thanks for having me.
You watched very closely. You know the case. Big moment today. Biggest moment today in court, do you think? Can you pick one?
Well, they're
most important, I guess, moment.
The opening statements are always important because that sets the tone, and lawyers, their opening statements are starting to persuade jurors. Jurors start making their minds up right away, so those opening statements were very important, and both sides got to present what they anticipate the evidence would be.
Any moments within those opening arguments that you thought really will stick?
Well, the defense obviously put up their centerpiece is that Chris Kyle himself texted on his trip down to the shooting range that this guy is straight up nuts.
Yeah, and it is interesting. He's riding in this truck with Chad Littlefield in the passenger seat and Ralph in the back seat, and they don't say it out loud, but he's communicating secretly. This guy is, as you mentioned, this guy is straight up nuts. Both sides can use that, I assume, right?
They will. I mean, you know, the defense obviously will say this is Chris Kyle saying in his own words, this guy's insane. And I think the state will counter that this is guy talk, that obviously if he really felt a problem, they wouldn't have continued with this shooting. We heard testimony from Chris Kyle's wife that she had a conversation with him. He was tense, but he didn't mention anything like that. So both sides will argue it either way.
Prosecutors mentioned that he had been drinking that day, Eddie Ray Routh, the suspect, and that he used something they called Purple Heart or marijuana, I guess dipped in formaldehyde, PCP. How might that change what is anticipated to be a mentally ill defense by the defense?
That could devastate the insanity defense. If the jurors believe the defendant was drinking and under the effects of drugs at the time, that's going to take away from the mental illness. Jurors do not like it when defendants take drugs and commit crimes. They want to hold them accountable, so that could hurt them. And you saw from the defense in their cross-examination of Mrs. Kyle that they would ask questions like, well, Chris wouldn't have allowed him to shoot a gun if he were under the influence. And the state countered with, well, he may not have known he was high on drugs. That's a big issue. The defense doesn't want the jury to believe that.
So they're kind of telegraphing that that's a concern, and they're going to try to shoot it down.
That's right.
All throughout.
I'm sure they're going to try to say that maybe he was delusional when he talked to the police, that he really wasn't drinking, and there was no evidence of that.
Prosecutors talked about, we're going to show through interviews with Texas Rangers such that Eddie Ray Routh knew what he had done was wrong, which is a key. And you said the main thing, well, not the main thing, but one thing that convinces you is that he took off from the scene, and that is unusual from criminally insane suspects at times.
That's going to be very important. The state, I'm sure, will play that up big time. He ran from the police. There was a car chase. They had to forcibly take him off the road. The argument will be, if you run, you know you did something wrong. You know you're trying not to get apprehended, you're trying not to get caught, and that is evidence that you knew exactly what you did was wrong and against the law.
And you say you've had experience with people who have killed people, and they call the police and say, I just killed somebody.
That's right.
That's the kind of unusual behavior that you expect from an insane person.
Successful insanity defenses often have a mother severely mentally ill, kills their own children, summons the police and says, look what I've done. The devil made me do it. They don't flee. They think what they did was perfectly fine. And that's the kind of testimony you see. Here, you have the opposite. You have him fleeing the scene and running from the police.
Makeup of the jury, does that hit you? 10 women, 2 men. I think I heard Heather talk a couple nights ago that maybe women might be more sympathetic to a defendant in this case. Does that?
Stereotypes say that, but really you learn when you try these cases, you don't know. It's up to the individual juror. I'm sure the whole voir dire process was probably based on how they felt about mental illness, what their experience with it was, and things like that. So you just can't tell just on gender.
Over the next couple of days, I think I don't know, but I assume we do evidentiary stuff. There's the big kind of emotional stuff at the beginning and then off in the end, but in the middle we're going to be talking about evidence gathering and things like that. Anything you see there?
Well, the state's going to have to prove their case, which the defense will concede, but they still have to put on the proof, and they're going to want to drag that out and show every bit of evidence they have against this man, and they're really going to emphasize that chase again, exactly what the conversation was before he ran and how that happened, and then of course his statement to the Rangers, where he admitted what he did, and according to the opening statement, said he knew what he did was wrong.
All right, we'll see. All right, Toby Shook, thanks for coming in. Hope to talk to you a couple more times over the next week or so. Thank you very much.